Well, let's get more now on the alleged Russian interference in the US presidential election campaign, which we brought you extensively on yesterday's programme. US intelligence say they now believe President Putin was personally involved in hacking Hillary Clinton's emails, which some believe influenced the outcome of the entire US election campaign. Overnight, President Obama vowed to take action against Russia.
There is no doubt that when any foreign government tries to impact the integrity of our elections, that we need to take action, and we will, at a time and place of our own choosing. Some of it may be explicit and publicized, some of it may not be. But Mr. Putin is well aware of my feelings about this because I spoke to him directly about it.
When you'd like to listen to that call, well, the claims by the US president have been dismissed as nonsense by the Kremlin. We tried to get to the bottom of this story on yesterday's programme. I was working with one of my producers, Jim Taylor, on it. The UK's former ambassador to Russia, Sir Andrew Wood, told me there was a case to answer for Mr. Trump.
I don't see how Donald Trump could not have known something. I think that's almost impossible. And what he actually said was to Hillary Clinton in the debates, you can't prove it, essentially. Those weren't his words, but he's just saying you don't know. He never said, this is serious, it must be investigated.
Edward Lucas is senior editor at The Economist and author of The New Cold War. Edward, welcome to the programme.
Hello, good morning.
This story seems to be really gathering momentum now, even though it was mentioned throughout and certainly in the latter parts of the election campaign in America. Realistically, what can President Obama do before he leaves office?
I think there's quite a lot he can do, actually, particularly in terms of exposing more about what we know about the dirty money that flows in such vast quantities out of Russia and into the financial system in both Britain and America and other countries. This is really the biggest vulnerability that the Kremlin's got, that they stash their cash in the Western financial system while preaching anti-Westernism as a sort of political ideology. So I think there's plenty he could do there.
So effectively economic sanctions?
Well, it's not so much sanctions. I think it's just, there's plenty of bankers and lawyers and accountants who've got pretty serious case to answer for what they've been doing over the last 20-odd years.
But I mean, they could hit them in the wallet, so to speak, with that money and how they're stashing it.
Yeah, I think they already have taken some steps under what are called the Magnitsky sanctions, which is about relating to a lawyer who died after being very badly treated in Moscow after he'd revealed a huge government money laundering scam. And so we have precedent to do this. Those went through Congress and were actually resisted by the administration. But there's plenty more that could be done about all sorts of financial misbehaviour that the Russians get up to.
Are you surprised about the candour with which we are hearing about this from the CIA, from other intelligence officials?
In a way, they should have been saying it earlier. I mean, it's no secret that the intelligence agencies all over Europe have been worried about Russia for years, and they've found difficulty in getting their political masters to take it seriously.
But when it's interfered with an election like this?
It's happened in other countries before that Russia's interfered in elections, but as I said, it's been very difficult to get the big Western intelligence agencies a real hearing at the top from politicians. That whether it was Tony Blair or Gordon Brown or David Cameron, the Obama administration, Angela Merkel, lots of the big Western governments have just been unwilling to listen to what their spies were telling them about the extent of Russian mischief-making, meddling and interference all over the place. It's not just in elections, it's also the use of organised crime, in propaganda.
But do you think this is a watershed moment then in that respect? So I understand that it's been a long time coming in some ways, but do you think the world is about to sit up and take notice of this?
I think that there's still large chunks of the world that doesn't understand that this is a problem. But I think in Europe, certainly the Germans are now waking up very alertly to this, and they've got elections coming, and they think that the same tactics that were used against Hillary Clinton are going to be used against Angela Merkel.
Right.
And they're really worried about that. So I think there's I sense that our own government is taking this a lot more seriously than they did. But I'm afraid it's still too little and too late as far as I'm concerned.
Donald Trump tweeted yesterday, if Russia or some other entity was hacking, why did the White House wait so long to act? Why did they only complain after Hillary lost? Does he have a point?
Well, I think you could argue it the other way around as well, that if the FBI had gone in and arrested people in the Trump campaign for being on the Russian payroll, or if the CIA had said, we've got very strong intelligence evidence that Putin is trying to, but personally trying to get revenge on Hillary Clinton to get Trump elected, then there would have been people who said, well, why are you interfering in the election campaign? So I think it's very difficult. Intelligence officers don't like being in the political spotlight, and they don't like giving away the sources of what they find out, because that tends to mean you won't be able to find it out again in future. So I think there was a real dilemma for the CIA about how public to be and what to say when. And now they have come out with it, and President Obama has just over 30 days to do whatever it is that he's going to do in the time remaining.
Do you think it could bring down the president-elect, Donald Trump, either before or while he's president?
The president is pretty well entrenched in the American system, and with the Republican Congress, it would be quite hard to see him being impeached, which is that was what did for President Nixon, was the prospect of impeachment. We just don't know what the Trump administration is going to be like, and it may be very chaotic. It's already, the popularity ratings aren't great at the moment. It may be mired in unpopularity. It may be very difficult for him to get his things through Congress.
But hang on, that's almost by the by, though, isn't it? This is about actually whether he should be there electorally, if there was an issue with how he got there, not how he's going to perform.
Well, I see. I'm sorry. I thought you meant, will this trip him up once he's president?
No. I mean, is there an issue with how he has been elected to office?
Well, I think there is very much an issue. I mean, it looks to me, and I think that the evidence that we've had put forward shows that Russia was putting a thumb on the scales. Whether that was the decisive factor, we don't know, because Hillary was a terrible candidate and fought a terrible campaign. So there's plenty of other factors as well. And it's theoretically possible that the Electoral College will say, we can't make this man president. And that is one of the checks and balances of the Constitution. It's you're not elected by the popular vote, that there is one further sort of hurdle, which is the Electoral College has to say, go ahead and do this. I think that's pretty unlikely myself. But I think it certainly casts a big cloud over his presidency, and particularly the fact that he's gone to war with the intelligence agencies. And if you publicly dismiss the CIA as a bunch of idiots, they are, he's not receiving his intelligence briefings, he's not taking any notice of what they're telling him, and I think he's cruising for a bruising on that one, because first of all, he actually needs the intelligence in order to function properly as president, and secondly, if he's really unpleasant to him, they have all sorts of ways of making life difficult for him, not least in leaking things.
Edward Lucas, very interesting. Thank you very much. Senior editor at The Economist and author of the book The New Cold War.